1-800-449-8255, Clark the Shark Show right here from the Golden EIB Sharkerphone. And have I got an album for you today? David Bowie, Scary Monsters, Super Creeps. And he actually took this title here from a commercial for cereal or something he heard in America, or maybe in England, I don't know, but it was definitely like a kid's cereal commercial or something like that. And this album by Bowie is not a part of the Berlin trilogy, where Bowie went and did these three pretty amazing albums, 1977, 76, 77, 78. Lodger is the album before this one, and it might be my favorite of the three Berlin albums. Bowie was staying in some hotel or motel or something in Berlin for years and recording all this great music there. Low, great, amazing album. Of course, we all know that. And then Heroes, an interesting album that I reviewed recently. And Lodger, very, very interesting album. One of my favorite Bowie albums is Lodger. But this album here, Scary Monsters, Super Creeps, this album kind of comes out of nowhere, people. 1980. And it's still a David Bowie weird album. But really, this is the last of the weird Bowie albums, at least for a while, because he would go into his sellout period, as Tony Visconti would call it, when he did Let's Dance and, Tonight and all that stuff, Never Let You Down, kind of crappy albums, but interesting. 1-800-449-8255, the Clark the Shark Show from the Golden EIB Sharkerphone right here. And anyway, this album is amazing. I like this album a lot, you guys. I do like it. And we're going to go, I don't even really care about the stars of this album. I'm sure it should get 5, but gets a 5, you guys. Gets a 4. This album could get a 3, a 4, or a 5. It's just, it's a good, solid album. I think it's a 5. Me, Clark the Shark. I love me some David Bowie albums. And this album, not recorded in Berlin. Oh, look at that, man. It gets a bunch of good, 5 stars. Yeah, it, gets 4s and 5s. It deserves it, There's Visconti, Tony Visconti. He's always had a lot to do with Bowie. And I remember I was in Peanut Records in Lomita one day, and the guy behind the counter was playing for me. He saw Clark the Shark in there shopping for records, so he started playing some It's No Game, #1. That's the one. It's got like the Japanese girl singing. It's really awesome. And
we can't do
it's definitely one of my favorite Bowie songs. Up the Hill Backwards, we know is killer. And then Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, killer song. and Ashes to Ashes and Fashion. This whole album is it's got an ambiance, atmosphere, keyboards, weird guitars, um, it definitely sounds like Fripp and Eno are on this album. uh, it's just killer. um, but side one is killer, love it. Fashion got a good dance beat, of course. Ashes to Ashes, awesome. uh, Great vocal harmonies, Bowie's sandpaper voice, and it goes with these songs. This album reminds me a little bit of Heroes from 1977, but not really. It's different from that. It's better, much better than that. Side two is really good. I love Teenage Wildlife, and Scream Like a Baby. It almost seems like Billy Joel ripped off that song and wrote, "We didn't start the fire." Scream like a baby. Sounds really similar. Kingdom Come, of course, killer. Because You're Young is probably my favorite song on the album, and it's not lit up in blue. Weird. And then It's No Game, number 2 version, is a more cleaned up and commercial version of It's No Game, kind of reprise, like Bowie, Sergeant Pepper. The song begins the album and then ends it, as many bands like The Who and The Tubes and lots of groups, the Amboy Dukes. A lot of bands do this rock opera thing, but this album really isn't a rock opera, but it does begin and end with 2 different versions of It's No Game, a song I really love. But the whole album is weird, really weird, atmospheric, weird guitars, man. I bought this album that day at Peanut Records. I don't think I bought this at Go Boy down in Redondo ever. And I don't think I ever bought this at the Rhodium in Torrance. I definitely bought this at Peanut Records in Lomita, California. And I bought a lot of vinyls at Zed Records down in Long Beach, where the circle is. Pacific Coast Highway goes into a circle in Long Beach, and I used to ride my bike or take my VW Fastback. I had a white 1966 VW Fastback, not a squareback. I had the Fastback, and I would drive it down to Zed Records or Peanut Records, Zed Records in Long Beach or Peanut Records in Lomita. And I know I bought this album probably about 1988 when I was 23, maybe 89, 24, at Peanut Records in Lomita, California. I used to go there and I would sell Greenhouse Effect tapes out of there. And I would sell out my tapes, you guys. My band was really popular around the South Bay from the beginning. 1987, 86, when we began, all the way to 92, to the very end, I was always selling my music. And, of course, my music was cutting edge, grungy. I was inventive. I was an originator, creative, if you will. But I didn't invent everything. A lot of people in South Bay say, "Oh, Clark the Shark used to rip holes into speakers downstairs at 251 and get this really fuzzy tone." But believe me, you guys, the Stooges, the MC5, the Who, way before me, Black Flag, Greg Ginn, Bad Religion, gosh, dude, Social Distortion, Sonic Youth, they were all way before Clark the Shark. I mean, I may have tried to commercialize it, where I'm like this little guy who wants to go and be a big rock star with it. Now, that was really weird, where I had this vision where my 3-piece band, we're going to be these big rock stars right in the middle of the heavy metal days in the late 80s. That was unheard of to even think like that. But yes, it had been done before. There were bands, and yes, there were bands playing the Forum and all kinds of big places long before me. I didn't invent anything, but I'm definitely really good at copying and fooling everybody that I invent everything. But smart people know, Clark the Shark, I got it all from a noise agency and the Minutemen and Black Flag and bands like that. But I'm not here to talk about those bands. I'm talking about side two, Teenage Wildlife. This David Bowie album, Scream Like a Baby, great songs, man. Just awesome, you guys. He does this all. There's no Brian Eno. Robert Fripp is on here, but he's got his band, Dennis Davis, George Murray, Carlos Alomar, Chuck Hammer. That guy's good, that. But he's got Robert Fripp on this album, but there's no Eno on this album. Look at that. Pete Townsend of The Who is on here. And of course, Tony Visconti's on here. But this album has a lot going on, a lot of atmosphere. I love Robert Fripp on Fashion and It's No Game. Scary Monsters, man. Robert Fripp, man, fuck, dude. Kingdom Come, he's on a lot of shit. And he makes this album amazing. But Bowie makes sure to have, Carlos Alomar. He makes sure it sounds like a David Bowie album. Dennis Davis, great drummer. For years, he was Bowie's drummer. And just a lot of atmosphere, you guys. Scary Monsters, Super Creeps. This album was a commercial comeback for David Bowie. It's got some big songs. It's got some of the greatest songs in rock music on this album. Some of the biggest and best known David Bowie albums. Lodger was a really solid album, but it's not really a big hit songs album. It's got that song DJ that I really love and some other great shit. It's a solid album, and I'm going to review Lodger because it's one of my favorite solid meat and potatoes David Bowie albums. But Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, this album is a big comeback. Bowie came along here in 1980 and he announced, I'm going to be huge again. I'm going to be on the scene, like records, not just playing big places, Bowie wants to be on the charts. And with this album, just the way it greets you with the Japanese girl narrating or singing or whatever on It's No Game, part one, I guess, number one. I love that. Up the Hill Backwards, very melodic, man. Love it. Up the hill backwards, it'll be all right. Yeah, love it. But songs 3 and 4, you guys, two of the greatest songs, man. Scary Monsters, such atmosphere. And ashes to ashes, funk to funky. We know Major Shark's a junkie, strung out on Sharky's high, and feeling that old time low. Sharky, that's right here, baby, right on the Clark the Shark Show. And do Fashion. Oh, it's a great album. Dance, ambient, techno. It almost seems like a techno disco song. I love it. I love this album, you guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, this album's a 15. David Bowie, 1980, Scary Monsters. One of my favorite David Bowie albums, you guys. Bought by me, the vinyl, Clark the Shark at Peanut Records in Lomita. And I want you guys to buy this too on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, everywhere, you guys. If you're 21, right here in 2023, and you were born in 2002 or 2001, I want you to get into David Bowie. Don't get into all that gay trans. That ain't what it's about, you guys. Bowie was an artist who dressed up like a weirdo. And he might have been weirdo and gay or whatever, or trans, I don't know. I could care less. I just care about his rock music acumen, his rock star knowledge, man. I don't care about Bowie dressing up weird and all that shit, because to me, that is a part of David Bowie. But what makes David Bowie awesome are his studio albums, even more than his amazing live concerts. The David Bowie studio albums, like this one, Scary Monsters, Super Creeps, that's why you love David Bowie. And that's why you buy David Bowie. And you heard it right here on the Clark the Shark Show. 1-800-449-8255. I'm Clark the Shark, the testimony, the gospel, the word. You heard it here. And you got the only review that you will ever need and you will ever want of David Bowie, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, 1980, taken from a kids cereal commercial or something like that. And I want you to buy this album, you guys, and crank it loud because it is incredible. You heard it here from the golden EIB Sharkerphone. Little Sharky, not the underground garage, the David Bowie garage, baby. From the golden EIB Sharkerphone. The excellence in broadcasting Sharkerphone. It's not a microphone, it's a Sharkerphone. And I'm out of here, people. I love all of you. Peace.